My wife slept with her boss and now she's trying to steal my $300, $0 inheritance and the house we built together. How do I fight her legal scheme before she ruins everything? Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to piece together how my wife, Emily, managed to pull off what feels like a full-blown betrayal right under my nose. It all started with little things, strange texts, late nights, unexplained absences. At first, I thought she was just stressed at work or maybe dealing with some personal stuff. Emily's always been good at hiding her feelings, but lately she'd become more irritable, snapping at me over nothing, avoiding intimacy, and acting secretive about her phone. Then came the obvious signs that something was really wrong. Her phone kept ringing late at night, and she'd quickly hide it or turn it off when I entered the room. She started taking longer showers, claiming she was detoxing or trying a new skincare routine, but I could smell perfume I didn't recognize. I caught her in a couple of small lies, like saying she was working late when I knew she'd been at happy hour with her friends. But then I found receipts for dinners and drinks with a man I'd never seen before. Her boss, Mark. Mark was an older guy, in his early 50s, a smooth talker with a reputation for being a bit of a player. I'd always suspected Emily had a bit of a wild streak, but I never thought she'd cheat on me, especially not with someone like him. Still, something about the way she behaved around him, her nervous glances, the way she'd get defensive if I asked questions, made me suspicious. One night I decided enough was enough. I followed her after she left work unexpectedly early. She went straight to Mark's house, not to her friends or her sisters like she'd told me. I parked a few blocks away and watched her walk into his place. It was like I'd been punched in the stomach. She was there in his living room with her coat still on, whispering and giggling. I saw her lean in and kiss him. The worst part, she had her hand on his thigh. That's when I knew for sure. My wife, the woman I'd loved and trusted, was sleeping with her boss. I felt my world shatter in that moment. I was furious, heartbroken, and confused all at once. How could she do this? How long had she been cheating? Did she ever love me? Or was I just a placeholder while she chased some fantasy with Mark? I didn't even sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my car, trying to process what I'd seen, knowing I had to confront her but dreading what she'd say. I kept replaying the scene in my mind, feeling the betrayal burn hotter with every passing second. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I wasn't going to let her get away with this, especially not after I found out about the inheritance. Emily had always known about the $300, $0 estate I was set to inherit from my grandmother's will. We talked about building a future with it, buying a house, maybe starting a family. But now I feared she was scheming to take it all, along with the house we built together. She'd always been manipulative, but this was next level. I needed a strategy, and I needed to act fast. My first step was gathering evidence, screenshots of her texts, banking statements, anything that proved her infidelity and her intentions. I also started looking into her bank accounts and any legal documents related to the inheritance. I knew she was a bitchy, lying sort. She'd spin stories, deny everything, and try to turn the tables on me. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. I was already planning my next move, and it wasn't going to be pretty. I felt a mix of anger and despair, but I also knew I had to stay calm. I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me. Still, deep down, I was seething. I'd trusted her with everything, my heart, my future, my money, and she'd thrown it all away for some cheap sex and a power play. It was time to fight back, not just for the inheritance, but for my dignity. I was determined to stop her from stealing what was rightfully mine and to make her pay for what she'd done. That's where I am now, ready to confront her but unsure how it's going to go. I just know I can't let her get away with this. If anyone's been through something similar, I'd love some advice on how to handle the legal side, how to protect what's mine, and how to keep myself sane through all this chaos. After I gathered enough evidence, screenshots of her secret texts with Mark bank statements showing deposits from her and withdrawals that didn't add up, and even a few recorded conversations, I knew I had to confront her. I didn't want to go in guns blazing, but I also couldn't let her keep lying or spinning her stories. She was good at lying, that's for sure. Emily has always been a master manipulator when it suited her. She's bitchy, sarcastic, and she can lie with that innocent look that makes it hard to tell if she's telling the truth or not. I waited until the evening when I knew she'd be home alone. She usually worked late on Thursdays. I was nervous, but part of me was furious. I wanted to see her face when I finally called her out. I didn't bother with small talk. I just laid everything out on the table: her texts, the bank info, the fact that I knew about her affair with Mark. I told her I had proof and she better start talking. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. She rolled her eyes, scoffed, and then started with her usual bullshit. "You're overreacting, Jason. You're just jealous because I'm more successful than you. Mark's just a friend, I swear. You don't know what you're talking about." She laughed, but I didn't buy it. Her voice was defensive, her eyes darting around. She was trying to act innocent, but she couldn't hide the guilt. I pressed her further. "You've been sleeping with your boss, Emily. Don't even bother lying. I saw you go into his house last night and I have proof of your affair. How long has this been going on? Are you planning to take my inheritance? Are you planning to leave me with nothing?" She scoffed again, crossing her arms. "You're crazy. You think I'd cheat on you? That's ridiculous. Mark's just helping me with work stuff. You're paranoid. You're just jealous because I'm doing better than you in my career." She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, trying to dismiss everything. I felt my blood boil. I'd had enough of her lies. "Stop the bullshit, Emily. I know about the money. I know you're trying to take everything I have, our house, my inheritance. You're scheming. I don't know what your game is, but I'm not going to let you ruin me. You've been lying, cheating, and planning to steal from me. That ends tonight." Her face twisted into a sneer. "You're just angry because I won't be your doormat anymore. You think you can control me? Well, I don't owe you anything. I deserve better and I'm taking what's mine." She spat the last words like venom. That was the moment I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. I told her she'd crossed the line, that I was calling a lawyer and I was going to protect my rights. I told her she was not getting her hands on my inheritance or the house we built. She kept denying it, but I knew she was lying. Her defensiveness, her sneering, her refusal to face what she'd done, it all made it clear she was planning something. I'd caught her red-handed, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything. I left her standing there, seething, and I went straight to my lawyer the next day. I explained everything, handed over all the evidence, and asked for advice on how to stop her from legally trying to steal what's mine. My lawyer told me that she might try to file claims or manipulate legal loopholes, especially if she's planning to use her position as my wife to her advantage. She's bitchy and manipulative enough to try to claim a share of the inheritance, even if it's not hers to take. I feel like I'm in a war now. I've got the evidence, and I've got the law on my side, but I can't ignore how much this hurts. I loved her once, and now I see her for what she really is: a manipulative, selfish woman who's willing to destroy everything we built together just to get her way. I keep asking myself how I didn't see the signs earlier, how I missed the lies, the evasiveness, the secret phone calls. The emotional toll been huge. I oscillate between anger, sadness, and a kind of numbness that's worse than crying. I feel betrayed not just by her but by the whole idea of what I thought we had. I trusted her and she was playing me all along, but I also know I can't let her win. I've got to fight for what's rightfully mine: inheritance, the house, my dignity. I've decided that I won't try to save this marriage anymore. She's shown her true colors. I'm preparing to take legal action to freeze her access to any joint accounts and to secure my assets. The hardest part is knowing I might have to go through a messy divorce, but I'd rather face that than let her walk all over me. I just hope I can come out of this with what's mine and maybe, someday, rebuild myself from the wreckage she's left behind. The day I handed over everything to my lawyer felt like stepping into a battlefield I wasn't fully prepared for. I sat there in his office, feeling numb but determined. We discussed the best ways to protect my inheritance and the house we built together. He advised me to file for a legal injunction to freeze her assets and to prepare for a possible divorce. More I thought about it, the angrier I got. Emily was scheming behind my back, planning to take everything I had, my future, my home, the inheritance I was counting on. I started digging into her financials myself, trying to find any loopholes or additional evidence. Turns out she'd been funneling money from our joint accounts into her own, opening new accounts in her name, and even trying to transfer the property ownership into her mother's name, probably in an attempt to shield it from legal claims. I was stunned. How far was she willing to go? I felt a mix of betrayal and fury. She'd lied so much I didn't even know if I could trust her anymore. In the meantime, I also reached out to some close friends and family, not to badmouth her but to get perspective. Most of them knew she'd been acting weird lately, but nobody suspected she'd be capable of this level of betrayal. They told me to stay strong, to document everything, and to protect myself legally. It was helpful, but it didn't stop the ache in my chest. Every time I thought about her with Mark, I felt sick. The thought of her lying in bed with him, pretending to be innocent, just made me angrier. One night I found out she'd been secretly meeting Mark at a hotel near her office. I was furious. I knew I had to confront her again, face to face, and demand answers. I waited until she got home late, and then I sat her down in the living room. I told her I knew everything about her affair, her plans to steal my inheritance, her lies. I told her I'd already contacted a lawyer and that I was prepared to fight her in court. Her reaction was classic Emily, defensive, bitchy, and dismissive. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're overreacting, Jason. You're just jealous because I'm doing better without you. Mark's just a friend helping me with work stuff. You're paranoid, you're insecure." She looked so smug, like she thought she'd won already. That's when I snapped. I told her she was a manipulative bitch and that I wasn't going to let her destroy everything I'd worked for. I warned her that I'd fight her every step of the way and that she'd regret crossing me. The next day, I started taking concrete legal steps. I filed for a temporary injunction to prevent her from transferring or selling any assets. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace her financial moves. She'd been trying to hide her real intentions, but I was determined to expose everything. Meanwhile, I kept a close eye on her social media, her phone, and her emails, just to stay one step ahead. I didn't trust her for a second. As the days went on, I felt more and more like I was fighting a war. I'd wake up with a knot in my stomach, knowing that Emily was scheming behind my back. Every time I thought I had a handle on things, she'd pull some new stunt, like trying to get a court order to access the house or claiming I was abusive to get custody of the assets. It was exhausting, but I refused to back down. I knew she was a manipulative, bitchy woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted, and I had to be smarter than her. I also started talking to a counselor. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry all at once. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting, but I knew I had to keep my head clear and focus on protecting what was mine. I reminded myself that I'd worked hard for that inheritance, that the house was my dream home, and I wasn't going to let her take it away without a fight. One thing was clear: Emily was relentless. She kept lying, spinning stories, and trying to manipulate the legal system. She tell everyone she was the victim, that I was just jealous or paranoid. But I had the evidence and I was ready to use it. I'd learned a lot about her true nature, how she was willing to lie, cheat, and scheme just to get what she wanted. And I knew I had to stay one step ahead if I wanted to keep what was rightfully mine. Right now, I'm just waiting for the court dates to come through, trying to keep my head straight. It's hard, but I keep telling myself I'll come out of this stronger. I never thought I'd have to fight my own wife in the legal system, but here I am. I just hope I can get through this without losing everything I've worked so hard for. The court proceedings started a few weeks after I filed all the necessary paperwork. It was a whirlwind of lawyers, legal jargon, and sleepless nights. Emily was doing her best to spin her version of events, playing the victim, crying about how I was controlling her, claiming she only cheated because I was neglectful and distant. She even tried to argue that she deserved a share of the inheritance because she had contributed emotionally to building our house, even though I had the receipts, the bank statements, and the texts to prove she was lying through her teeth. I sat through the hearings, feeling like I was in some kind of nightmare. Every time Emily's lawyer tried to twist the facts, I had my evidence ready. My lawyer was sharp, and we presented everything: screenshots, bank records, witness statements from friends who saw her sneaking around with Mark. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. She recognized the manipulative tactics Emily was using, and I felt a glimmer of hope that I might actually get a fair outcome. Emily's lawyer, of course, tried to argue that my claims were baseless, that Emily was a hardworking woman, and that I was just bitter because she'd moved on. She even accused me of emotional abuse, trying to paint me as the bad guy. But I had all the proof to counter that: texts where Emily was openly flirting with Mark, bank transfers showing how she was funneling money, and witnesses who confirmed she'd been planning to leave me for months. One of the most intense moments was when Emily tried to claim that I was trying to sabotage her career, that I'd been controlling her and preventing her from making money. I shot back with the facts: how she'd been secretly opening accounts in her name, transferring assets, and even trying to transfer the house into her mother's name. The judge looked at her with suspicion, and I could tell she was starting to see through Emily's lies. Meanwhile, I stayed calm, focused, and kept my emotions in check. I knew Emily was good at playing the victim, but I also knew I had the truth on my side. Every day, I felt a little more hopeful that I'd come out of this with my inheritance intact and the house secure. But I also knew that Emily wasn't going down without a fight. She'd already threatened me, saying she'd ruin me if I tried to take what was hers. That only made me more determined. In the midst of all this, I discovered something else. Emily had been secretly planning to get a court order to gain temporary custody of the house, claiming I was unfit because I was emotionally unstable. That was the last straw. I had to act fast. I hired a private investigator to verify her plans and to gather more evidence of her scheming. It was clear she was trying everything she could to turn the legal system against me, to make herself look innocent while she plotted her next move. I also started to feel the full weight of betrayal. I'd loved her, trusted her, and built a life with her. Now I realized I'd been living with a manipulative, bitchy woman who'd do anything to get her hands on my money and my home. It hurt more than I can say. The worst part was knowing she'd lied to my face for months, pretending everything was fine while secretly plotting to steal from me. That realization hit me hard. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How did I not see the signs earlier? The legal battle was draining, but I refused to give up. I spent every spare moment reviewing documents, talking to my lawyer, and working on my case. I also started to mentally prepare myself for the worst. If she somehow managed to win, I knew I'd have to start over. But deep down, I believed the truth would prevail. I believed justice was on my side. I had to hold on to that hope because losing everything was simply not an option anymore. There was a moment when Emily tried to file a counterclaim, saying I was trying to control her, that I'd been emotionally abusive, and that she deserved a share of the inheritance because she'd contributed to the house emotionally. I knew she was lying, but I had to be prepared for her to spin stories. My lawyer warned me to stay calm and stick to the facts. We prepared a detailed response, showing how her claims were fabricated and how her actions proved she was only interested in her own gain. Throughout all this, I felt a strange mixture of anger and sadness. I was angry at her betrayal, at her lies, at her greed. But I was also sad because I'd lost the woman I once loved, the woman I'd trusted with everything. It was hard to reconcile the woman I'd known with the scheming, manipulative person she'd become. I wondered how I'd been so blind, how I'd missed the signs, how I'd failed to see her true nature. Now I just want this to be over. I want to protect what's mine and move on from the pain. The legal process is slow, but I'm confident I'll come out on top. I don't want her to get away with stealing my inheritance or taking my house. I want her to face the consequences of her actions. And most of all, I want to heal from this betrayal, to rebuild my life without her dragging me down. It's a long road ahead, but I'm ready to fight for what's rightfully mine. The court date finally arrived, and I felt a mix of relief and dread. All the months of fighting, gathering evidence, and preparing my case were about to be tested. Emily showed up with her usual bitchy smirk, trying to look confident. She had her lawyer whispering in her ear, probably feeding her lines to spin her version of events. I sat across from her, staring calmly but feeling like my insides were boiling over. I knew this was the moment where everything would either be decided in my favor or turned against me. The judge started with a review of the case, listening carefully as both sides presented their arguments. My lawyer laid out the evidence, screenshots, bank records, witness statements, and emphasized Emily's pattern of scheming, lying, and trying to manipulate the legal system. Emily's lawyer argued that Emily was entitled to a fair share of the inheritance because she'd contributed emotionally, and that I was trying to limit her rights. She even claimed I was trying to control her, classic gaslighting. But I had the facts and I knew how to present them clearly. I explained how Emily had been secretly funneling money into her accounts, trying to transfer the house into her mother's name, and how her affair with Mark was a clear sign of her manipulative nature. I pointed out her attempts to get a court order to take custody of the house, her lies about working late, and her efforts to hide her financial moves. I emphasized that I'd been transparent, honest, and that her actions proved she was only interested in stealing what was mine. The judge listened carefully, occasionally asking pointed questions. When she asked Emily directly about the affair, Emily tried to deny everything, but her voice wavered. I could see her trying to maintain her composure, but her eyes kept darting around, avoiding eye contact. I knew she was lying, and the judge seemed to pick up on it. She asked Emily if she was aware of the evidence I'd presented, and Emily's only response was a dismissive shrug. Finally, the judge took a break to deliberate. I felt exhausted but also strangely hopeful. I'd done everything I could, and I knew the truth was on my side. When she returned, she announced her decision. She ruled that Emily was not entitled to any part of the inheritance and that the house would remain in my name. She also issued a restraining order preventing Emily from transferring or selling any assets related to the property. I felt a surge of relief, but I knew the fight wasn't over yet. Emily was furious. She tried to argue to appeal, but the judge was clear. She told Emily that her actions had been manipulative and deceitful, and that she was trying to defraud her husband. Emily's face turned red with anger, and she spat out some angry words before storming out of the courtroom. Her bitchy attitude hadn't changed, but it was obvious she'd been beaten at her own game. After the hearing, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, but the emotional scars still lingered. I knew Emily wasn't finished. She'd probably try to find some way to retaliate or make my life difficult, but I was prepared for that. I'd fought hard and I'd won the legal battle. Now I had to focus on rebuilding my life and healing from the betrayal. I spent the next few days cleaning out the house we'd built together. It was hard seeing the empty rooms, knowing that the woman I loved had been lying and cheating for months. I took my time, making sure everything was documented and secured. I also started to reconnect with friends and family, leaning on them for support. The emotional toll was heavy, but I knew I couldn't let her ruin me completely. What I learned from all this is that trust can be shattered in an instant, and that some people are capable of the most manipulative, selfish acts. I also realized that fighting for what's right is worth it, even if it means going through hell. I've come out of this with a clearer understanding of who Emily really is, and I'm stronger for it. I want to warn anyone in a similar situation. Document everything, stay calm, and don't let their lies manipulate you. Justice may take time, but in the end, the truth always finds a way to surface. Now, I just want to move on and rebuild my life without her shadow hanging over me. In the aftermath of everything, I've realized just how much this ordeal has changed me. The courtroom victory was a huge relief, but it didn't erase the pain of betrayal or the years I lost trusting someone I thought I knew. Still, I feel a sense of closure now, knowing I fought hard and that the truth was on my side. The house is finally legally mine, and Emily can't touch the inheritance anymore. That's a win I'll hold onto for a long time. Living through this has taught me some tough lessons. First, never ignore the small signs of trouble. Those little inconsistencies or secretive behaviors can snowball into something much worse. Second, always keep good records. I never imagined I'd need proof of her lies, but when it counted, those screenshots, bank statements, and witness testimonies made all the difference. And third, trust is fragile. Once broken, it's almost impossible to repair, and sometimes walking away is the only way to preserve your sanity and dignity. I've started focusing on rebuilding myself. I've been going to therapy, talking about what happened and learning how to heal. It's not easy, and sometimes I still get angry or sad, but I remind myself that I deserve better. I'm taking the time to figure out what I want for my future, financially, emotionally, and personally. I've also cut ties with Emily completely. No more contact, no more drama. It's been a relief not to have her manipulative voice in my life. Looking back, I can see how deeply she underestimated me. She thought she could take everything I had, my money, my house, my trust, and walk away unscathed. But I stood my ground, fought for what was rightfully mine, and came out stronger. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's this. Don't let anyone manipulate or deceive you. Be vigilant, stay organized, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Sometimes, the biggest battles are the ones within, and only by facing them head-on can you truly move forward. Now, I'm focusing on my future, rebuilding what was lost, and making sure I don't let betrayal define me. I've learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out, if you're willing to fight for it. Life goes on, and I plan to make the most of it, free from the lies and schemes that once threatened to destroy everything. This experience has been brutal, but it's also been a wake-up call. I know now what I'm capable of, and I won't let anyone take advantage of me again. I'm grateful for the lessons learned, and I'm finally starting to feel like I can breathe again. I hope my story serves as a warning and a reminder. Stay vigilant, protect your assets, and never underestimate the power of standing up for yourself. Because in the end, truth and integrity are what truly matter.